All right, Bradford is in Austin today, but I am very pleased to be joined by none other than Joe Tegtmeyer. Joe is, I think all of you probably know who he is, but for those who, for whatever reason, don't, Joe is a drone operator extraordinaire at the Giga Texas plant and just a general great voice within the Tesla community. So, Joe, thanks so much for stepping in.
Well, thanks for having me. And there's a lot to talk about on a bunch of different subjects. It's never a dull moment with Tesla.
No, there's definitely never a dull moment. Probably, especially when we're on the verge of a Cybercab launch, we're on the verge of the shareholder meeting with Elon's comp package being a topic of conversation. So we'll get into all of that. But I wanted to maybe start off on the Cybercab. You've done some really great reporting on that. We had the news that it was seen in the In-N-Out burger recently,
Yes.
which was
Big news.
big news. Maybe for those who maybe aren't familiar, why is that such big news?
All right. Well, it's kind of a tradition that Tesla has had with previous models or products that they've been rolling out. The last one that they did that with was the Cybertruck about 2 years ago or so. And when they decide that they're ready to basically transition the project from the engineering department, which is kind of the development part, to the production part, they take their prototype or their whatever their latest version of that, and they take it to In-N-Out Burger, and it's kind of a way of announcing to the world, hey, we've made a pretty significant milestone. We've made a kind of dramatic change within the program, and it's kind of a symbolic, we're going to go closer to production now versus just developing a prototype. So it's really a great thing to see.
Yeah, and a great tradition for sure. So you and I were talking a little bit about the Cybercab recently, and there's been this endless back and forth debate on steering wheel versus no steering wheel. We've had Farzad and Omar exchanging barbs and some pretty hilarious memes back and forth. And that you've had a couple interesting posts on it I wanted to highlight. One was just in your most recent video, kind of talking about, Elon more or less settled this with when he was on the All-In Pod, and Jason Calacanis was like, hey, why don't you just, launch this with the Cybercab? And he's like, no, we're not. Basically, we're not going to do that or launch this with the steering wheel. But then you also posted more recently on, whether, Tesla might be trading off some short-term versus long-term optimization. So, without kind of concluding one way or the other, I'm curious if you could maybe tee this up for the audience who maybe didn't see your post, because I think it's a very interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, well, it has certainly generated a lot of conversation, a lot of passion on all different sizes. But, one of the interesting things, just for a backstory, is that the question of whether or not Cybercab, which is designed to be an autonomous vehicle from the start, two-seater, used in like a robotaxi kind of fleet, and there's been some suggestion of the ability for owners to buy them too, and then either use them for their own purposes or enter them into the fleet. So we've had this discussion ever since the 1010 event, when it was unveiled out at the Warner Brothers studio, which is just over a year ago, which is hard to believe. It's been just a year and all of this has happened. But along the way,
crazy. Actually, I didn't quite realize that. But yeah, it's been over a year. That's wild.
Yeah. I had a fortunate opportunity to go there, and it was just crazy. And I don't think anybody really knew what we were going to see. And then, of course, the robo-taxi and with the Cybercab driving around on that kind of closed loop was sort of the centerpiece of what was going on there, along with the Optimus and the robust robovan, whatever it's going to be called now. So a lot of really forward-looking, products. And also it was kind of, I think, Tesla's signature, or putting the flag down, that they have decided that they are going to embrace autonomy and start moving more towards robots, whether they're on wheels, whether they're on legs or whatever. And so it was kind of a really huge event, and it was just over a year ago. And I think sometimes people think it was a lot longer than that. But after that event was over, the inevitable started happening as you started seeing Cybercabs in different places. They were displaying them. People were getting a lot of inputs. And I started seeing them at Giga Texas, and they were doing a lot of testing, driving them around the factory to get data to, for a while they had a chase car behind them. And I got a lot of drone shots of that driving around. And of course, a lot of people were interested in it. But I kind of inadvertently started a bit of the firestorm about the steering wheel because I actually caught pictures of Cybercabs with the steering wheel. And so that's really kind of put gas
which I
on that
mean,
flame.
I think like that seems to be a bit of an overreaction, though. I mean, as an example, I was at the X takeover in California in the Bay Area earlier this year,
Yeah.
and when the Cybercab showed up, like all the Tesla employees covered it because presumably they were taking the steering wheel out on the test videos. I mean, there was no other reason to like shield that sort of thing. So
Right.
I think we've known for a while that at least in some of these pre-production versions that there'd be a steering wheel. But
By
I
the
guess
way, at that event, right before Lars went up for his discussion that they had on the stage, I was standing next to him backstage, and it was kind of funny to me because he actually knew who I was because of the videos and stuff, which I thought was pretty interesting.
that's
But
cool.
he mentioned, he goes, "Yeah, and you're the one that got the picture with the steering wheel." And he goes, "That's just an engineering one. We just use it to do testing. It's not what we have planned." So even at that point, he was pretty, clear on that. I think Franz has been clear on that. Tesla's been clear on that. Elon's been clear on that. The only thing that just added a little bit more fire again was Robin Denholm recently out at Times Square when they were doing a demonstration of the robots in the Cybercab. Bloomberg interviewed her, and she said that if necessary, because of regulations, they would have an option of putting a steering wheel onto it. So this is kind of like, hopefully this backstory is kind of giving you an idea of, why is this being talked about now? And then getting to your point, what I was talking about with the short and long-term kind of interplay that this has really brought up.
Yeah, and so I think that the Denholm's comments on this, to me, it just seemed a bit like almost a throwaway comment, not like there was some huge plan there. It kind of reminded me of Elon's comments a while ago when people were really criticizing the Cybertruck design. He was like, "Well, listen, if it doesn't sell well, we'll just design a more traditional looking truck." That wasn't an indication that there were plans to build a traditional, style truck. And I think similarly here, it's like, well, yeah, you could actually pretty easily put a steering wheel in and pedals. But that doesn't mean that, that's a plan or there's some new variation that's unveiled. So I don't know. I've been a bit confused by Farzad kind of having a victory dance on this topic, to be honest with you.
Well, to me, whether or not it has a steering wheel in and of itself isn't really super important to me or what I'm super concerned about. But to me, what it seems like is it's kind of uncovered a few more deeper subjects that people have been worried about or talking about within Tesla community. And one of those, I mean, there's a lot, but one of them is kind of on the consumer side, expectations, what kind of vehicle I could purchase, and that lower cost kind of car. And what it seems to me is that there is a huge demand for, or at least there's a lot of people saying that they would really like to have a lower cost car, lower than even the standard edition 3 that just got unveiled. And so I think it kind of uncovered that kind of question or that concern within the Tesla community. And then the other one that it kind of uncovered is more on the shareholder kind of following the company. And that is this whole strategic shift to autonomy that was really announced back last year on 10/10. And we're seeing that kind of pervade throughout all of its products and the direction that Tesla wants to go. And the concerns that I think investors have on that is, one, is that really the right direction for the company or not? And two, how do you make that actually happen? And what happens if there's bumps on the road to that?
Yeah.
And I think those two kind of questions got pulled up, the Band-Aid got ripped off, and those were highlighted with the steering wheel and the Cybercab kind of.
Yeah, I think there's this perennial debate among, a lot in the Tesla community of like, wanting to maximize sales in the, short to medium term and, trying to offset, or like maximally segmentize your all your different people who would be interested in the car,
Right.
and like trying to just increase the TAM by having many different form factors of vehicles. As far as I can tell, where Elon's head is I think he's just more of the mindset of like, let's burn the ships and go all in on autonomy. Like if we can't solve autonomy, we don't deserve to be $1 trillion company. And so let's not waste engineering talent and resources on, some fifth form factor vehicle, that's, might sell reasonably well, when the real opportunity and like the significant earnings power, cash flow power, all that is on drastically lowering the cost per mile by, Cybercab, and really just going all in on autonomy.
Yeah.
Do you think how does that kind of framing of the situation sit with you?
Well, I think, Elon is the ultimate change agent, and he's also looking into the future, and he's trying to see what will the future look like with these particular parameters. And if we are able to get enough of the AI, the supporting infrastructure, the software, the data, do the training, and be able to feed field products that can maximize that, and the implications that that would have for our society, not just Tesla, then why would you do an intermediate step? And just let's just go all the way that way. And we've seen that with him on things like Starlink. He said, we're going to do this. So he got the ability to launch them. He started launching them. At first, people were not sure why. And now it's dominating the system. And we're talking about data centers and other stuff that you could do with them, which is not what we thought earlier on. So it's almost, I don't know if it was Henry Ford or the thing is if you ask customers what they want, they just want what they have, but a better version of what they have. They don't have that vision of what could be if we have something completely different. And, so I think he is definitely like that. And that's what he's doing with all of his companies, and particularly with Tesla. And so it's kind of it's a big risk, potential big reward, but there will be challenges along the way. And I think it's those challenges along the way that people are focusing on right now, rather than that destination.
Yeah. I think one of the best examples of this in the past is Elon's stance on LiDAR. He's like, we could probably get better results in the short term if we incorporated LiDAR, but in the long term, you're going to have to figure out how to read these signs anyways. And so why not focus on the goal maximum, which is, getting vision to be so good that it can be excellent at all the stuff LiDAR is excellent at. And then, by the way, you'll also be able to actually read what's on a sign and, have all the other benefits of vision. So to me, he's not afraid of taking the hard path. And I think that's another case here where, he's prioritizing the goal maximum, which is just getting to autonomy as fast as possible.
Yeah. So, I know that it's not just me seeing this or hearing this. A lot of people have seen it. I think Walter Isaacman's book talked about this too, where there's a lot of internal discussions within Tesla about what is the path forward. And you have Elon pushing for like the ultimate future. And, if we have these three things and we put them together, this is the future that we're going to have, and that's where we're going to go. And then you have others that are saying, well, what about a transition plan or a bridge? And how do we get there? So there is that interplay that's going on. One of the problems, and I think what Elon's trying to get at, is if you come up with a interim solution that's actually pretty good, that may become the permanent solution, and it make it harder for you to continue to do that transition later on. So he wants to just skip right over that and go right to that final solution, and then you can work on all the details and refine it as you go, versus having to undo a large number of logistics infrastructure, factory infrastructure, hardware infrastructure, contracts, all those things that you would do to get that interim solution. Now you have to unwind all that so you can go on. So I think he's just trying to leapfrog over that. And when you do that, it does, create opportunity and challenges along the way. For what I do, one of the things I do with the drones at Giga Texas, and Giga Texas is going to play a major role with this, because we have the Cortex data center at the south end. They expanded the building for that, and all that, the H100 GPUs, the A4 inference computers that they have, with all of the work that they're doing to do all the training, that is necessary if you're going to go to this AI infrastructure. They're improving all of the infrastructure, the electrical systems, the megapacks, all the things that you would need to support that. All is going on at Giga Texas, and Cybercab production is going to be at Giga Texas. So me being there and seeing the stuff that I see, the reason why I look at things like going out to the staging yards, what equipment's being delivered, where is it going into the factory, how much of it's going, it kind of gives us that insight on not only how well are they progressing towards that goal, but are they actually putting their money where their mouth is, and are they doing that goal? And the answer is absolutely yes. I mean, you can see it every day through my videos. So, if people are questioning, is Tesla really committed to the AI future or not, all you have to do is look at my videos. You can see the amount of infrastructure, the amount of money, the amount of time, the amount of space that they're dedicated and been reshaping within the factory. This is where they're going to go. And beyond that is they are not building. I mean, they have capability that if they need to make adjustments, kind of like what Robin was saying, they can. But they're really building everything with the idea that we've got the product, we know where we're going to go. We can see even late prototypes driving around now, and it matches up with the ones that they just took to In and Out. So it tells me that not only are they all in on it, but they have already installed all of that infrastructure. They're doing the training, the testing on the lines now. They're hiring the people in. They're doing all those things that is necessary to hit that production timeline, which is right now to start production in the second quarter of 2026. And I say that because they're not going to start at 1 million cars a year. It's going to be a ramp, and it's going to be slow at first. They're going to work out some issues. They're still going to be working out issues between now and then, but it will be a ramp up over the year, and then probably not until 27 when it really hits its stride. But to do all of those things and to be prepared to hit those milestones I don't think we're at the time where they're going to be redoing the products to start changing them. We're going to add more doors, we're going to lengthen it, we're going to put steering wheels, all that stuff. I think that they don't want to do that at all. I think that they believe that they have a path ahead that will allow that to happen. And I think what Robin was saying was more of a backup in case over, say, the next 18 months, if we find out that the market says no, that they have a backup plan.
Yeah. Yeah, that all makes a ton of sense. And I mean, thinking about where the company is on AI right now, I mean, they very recently launched V14. We'll get into that in a minute here. But I mean, it seems to me anyways that kind of fast forwarding in my mind of like the progress that they've had on autonomy and just how safe I think that the vehicles are now. Not to say they're perfect. And again, we'll kind of get into some of the issues here shortly. But to me, kind of starting the ramp in Q2 of next year, meaning keeping in mind that we're going to have a lot more pilot cities at that point, so that you could start deploying the early production runs of these Cybercabs too. That all sort of makes sense to me, that you could have a small fleet of these Cybercabs and kind of growing starting from Q2 and maybe ramping up a little bit more serious numbers by kind of second half of next year, as like fully autonomous Cybercabs with no safety monitor or anything in them. So
it also does something else too. I know that, when we talk about investors concerned about, is this the right direction? And what about bumps along the road to get to that full autonomy somewhere down the future? One of the things that people talk about is whether or not the regulations allow for driverless vehicles in large numbers and all that. And what I would say is that, we still have, well, if we go to the end of the second quarter, we have about 8 months more until we can start seeing that production happen. That's a lot of time to work out those issues, whether it's on the regulatory environment to get clarity. As you were saying, they're going to be expanding the robotaxi fleet to multiple different metro areas and different states. So there's still a lot of time to develop that service and to get through those regulations and to get much more clarity while they're collecting the data with their current fleet and just, getting that experience, not only for Tesla, but also for the cities that are there, that they're trying to roll it out to, so that when the Cybercab production is starting to ramp, there is a place for them to go and start being used.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the worst case scenario would be if they build a bunch of these without pedals and steering wheels, and then they're just sitting there. Like,
Right.
what was that VW vehicle that was just sitting there for like a year in Germany because they didn't have the right infotainment screen or something like
Right.
that.
Yeah. There's
Um,
actually a lot happening with Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche with the same things. The Macan has one of those things where they had to not bring out the EV Macan for a year or two because I think Car ID was having problems with their software.
yeah.
So it's a bad thing to make a new product that you've put a lot of capital investment into and you can't use it. So, I think that's sort of the basis of the concerns on the investor side as well. If these don't work, what is the plan? And I think Robin gave us that idea. Well, the plan is that we could then, if it's a steering wheel thing, we could go for that for an interim
Hmm.
approach. So I think Tesla's thought this out. I think they have a pretty reasonable expectation of what this is going to be like. And the fact that we still have at least a half a year before it really starts getting serious as far as vehicles coming out of the factory is that they still have time to work through these while they're expanding their existing robotaxi fleet. And like you said, they have new V14 out. It's going to have several different iterations. They're going to be getting better. They're going to be getting more data. They're going to be adding more features, and all of that's going to work with the Cybercab. And one last thing I'll just mention, you kind of touched on it, but today they talked a little bit about the various chips, about AI5 and all that stuff. But one of the clear things is that AI5 probably won't scale until 27, which means that all the Cybercabs are going to be AI4. So it's going to be the hardware that we have right now with the software that they are rolling out right now. So I think Tesla seems to be pretty confident with that, and the existing hardware and software solutions that they have, they are pretty confident with that as well.
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting bit of information. I was a little bit surprised by that, to be honest with you. I assumed it would kind of come out maybe late next year or so.
Yeah.
But that's all right, I
What is
guess.
it? Prototypes are easy, production is hard, and with chips, it's like excruciating.
Yeah, and then too, I'm sure once they actually get to scale on AI5, how long is it going to be until you kind of leapfrog the capability of AI4 on the software side?
Right.
That was certainly something we saw with the transition from 3 to 4, where 3 was better than 4 for a while, and then all of a sudden it was just 3 was eventually the forgotten stepchild,
Yeah.
as they are now. Um,
Well, unlike a phone or something, a smartphone where, the next one comes out and everybody sells theirs and gets the new one. Tesla's got an interesting issue in that, as the new hardware keeps coming out, people with older hardware are going to want it to be upgraded without having to buy something new. So I think everybody's curious to see what the solution is actually going to be for the hardware 3 cars and the future old hardware 4 cars.
Yeah. Well, with the future old hardware for cars, I mean, it would seem to me that Tesla could buy them and just put them into the fleet and generate some cash flow, just from robotaxi operations.
Mhm.
Um, they still have some kind of proving out to do that they can scale the existing 3Y S and X fleet and actually use those as robotaxis. But to me, that seems like something that they'll figure out in the time frame that we're talking about.
Yeah, well, the other aspect is that we assume that the learning, the LLMs, the AI, the neural nets, the approach that's going right now won't itself change. And I think, I am certainly not an expert on this, and I'm way outside of my depth on it, but I am at least aware of research and developments that are showing that they can continue to improve on those um, approaches and consolidate and condense quite a bit so that existing hardware may be able to do more than what we think right now because they've made advances with
Mhm.
that approach with the software and the AI training and all that. So, while we're focused on faster and better hardware, we may have a solution that could work better for the older stuff. So that is probably something that they're looking at as well.
Yeah. And notice Farzad just dropped in a comment. We're on his channel, so we might as well highlight it. So, yeah, Cybercab launching with AI4 was a very interesting finding today. And Farzad basically admitting that he was convinced that it would be launched with AI5, which kind of made sense based on the timing that we were expecting. So the fact that they are launching Cybercab with this is I think a very good sign.
I think it's a great sign, not only because they have a solution that's existing now that they can build on, but with most things, it may have been that they were hoping that they could have the AI5, but things take longer to actually produce, and they have a fallback plan, and the AI4 is good enough for them to build on. So I think that's actually a strength if you think about that they have that capability.
Yeah, and this is one area too, just to get back to that whole steering wheel versus no steering wheel debate. I've been kind of the camp that I don't really care too much, because I mean, it's not going to be a huge change in capital expenditure if you need to go back and change the production line. Obviously, it'd be better to kind of get it one way or the other. But to me, the real question is how quickly can your typical Model Y that's being sold right now actually be operating as a robotaxi. I think at the point at which that's an ability, then you're just opening up the entire market to the entire U.S. based fleet of all the old vehicles, and then how quickly you can ramp the Cybercab, is a kind of how much cherries, how many more cherries are going to be on top, and
Right.
what's the long-term scaling kind of going to look like?
Well, obviously, I was going to say the good thing is, as you pointed out, it could be a Model Y. They could even put 3s and maybe Cybertrucks or whatever into the fleet. So you could have all of a sudden a fleet that has multiple different options, that each one could be a different pay band or something, what you need. And they can continue with that as they work out whatever issues may come up with the Cybercab. The thing about from the standpoint of having a steering wheel in the Cybercab and using it as a robotaxi, which kind of defeats the purpose a little bit, is if you have to have a monitor or something in that steering wheel, you can only have one passenger. So it kind of reduces how much you can carry. So it's kind of meant to have 2 passengers.
Yeah.
The other question is okay, if you have a steering wheel and you put 2 passengers in it, how do you prevent one of them from taking over? I mean, I think like with Waymo and even with the robotaxi right now, is they are not allowing a passenger to be in that seat with the steering wheel. So would they then have Cybercabs where whether there's a monitor or not, you can only have one passenger and it can only be in the right seat? It's not built for that. So
to me, the steering wheel only makes sense for personal use.
Yeah.
But yeah, even then, it just seems like a pretty suboptimal solution. So I want to touch base on V14 for a minute. This is obviously an indication of how quickly we will get to the robotaxi future. But is the best way to do that is by looking at the current software stack that we have and kind of seeing the experiences there. So I shared some of my experiences a while ago, and I think a lot of the early reviews were like super favorable. Oh my gosh, this thing's great. Maybe a little phantom braking. But I shared a post that was maybe a little bit more bearish than those early ones. My experience was just not ideal, I would say. I mean, it was nothing too terrible, but just not being aggressive enough in some situations, and then conversely being like way too aggressive in others, particularly around speeding. So I think most people are kind of finding that this is maybe not lived up to some of the hype from the early days. Admittedly, there's a huge amount of capability improvement, and so I don't want to downplay that at all. And I think the types of issues that I'm experiencing are really comfort related and not safety, which is a super important distinction. But I wanted to just kind of offer that question up to you. How's your experience with V14 been so far, and how does it compare to your expectations before you received it?
Yeah. Well, I have I originally got 14.1.3, and most of my original impressions were based on that. So it was for those who are not aware, Tesla rolls out a software, and then if they have to make a fix, they do a dot. So it's like a dot change. And if it's like 14.1.1, 2, or 3, it means it's small changes within that group. If it's something really big, then they do a bigger dot, like 14.2 or 14.3 or whatever. So I was like 2 iterations in when I first got it, and that one had issues with I guess you'd call it jerkiness, uncertainty. Sometimes I don't know how to exactly describe it. Mathematically, it's called jerk and snap, which is basically different derivatives of your velocity, whatever. So what that means is it would move a lane, but it would do it really, really fast and then stop it. It's very jarring from a standpoint of being in there. And I know that they can dial those things down. And when .4 came out, they actually did that. So it's better, but not perfect yet. And the other thing is, the reason why they roll it out this way is it gives them a chance to get a much broader audience in a lot of different scenarios to get this data back. So I started with that on my Model 3. Yeah, my biggest issues were that it was the uncertainties, the jerkiness, the rapid motions, the speeding is probably one of the biggest ones, and the continued problem with the navigation database and mismatching to reality, and what does the car do in those circumstances. And so those are opportunity areas for Tesla to fix, in my opinion. My other thoughts on that are, a lot of the early testers tend to be very tech oriented and focus on the technology. And they're talking about, whether or not the weights could be this way, or did it do this or whatever. And they're trying to give that kind of feedback back to the team, which is very valuable. I approach it slightly different. I approach it from the standpoint of, if you were a consumer buying this, would it work for you? Would you like it? Would you have that confidence? And to do that, not only do I drive it myself, and by the way, I used to be an instructor pilot. So I used to teach students all the time. So I would see and kind of evaluate how students were doing with their flying. And I would kind of use this same approach: are they safe for the mission? And not only that, but if they had passengers or whatever, would they make them sick? Could they refine it a little bit? So I've kind of approached it that way. It's a little bit different. And I've taken people that don't have much experience with it, and I've taken them into the vehicle and had them try it out and kind of get their feedback. And right now, with the state that it's at, I think it still needs refinement before it would be something that a lot of people would really want to own, just because of that jerkiness, whatever. And I think that's important for Tesla to also understand as they continue to develop this.
Yeah, I think that distinction you made between, people who love the tech and are kind of thinking about what it's doing, and are more focused on that, as opposed to, hey, I'm just a regular person driving my car. Are these decisions, good or not? I think that's a huge distinction, because like my wife, for example, not a Tesla fan. So, like, she loves driving the car. She never uses FSD. She's like, why would you, use that when it's just such a fun car to drive? So, if I put that on her, and, one example, you mentioned the navigation system. So I was in rush hour traffic, just picking up a pizza from my local shop, just hit return. And rather than turning right onto the main road, it just wanted to do this convoluted left on a different road.
Yeah.
Traffic was like way backed up for like half a mile probably, and there was no chance it was getting in the left turn lane. But I just let it sit there for a while, like, see if it might try to figure it out. And it was clear that it was just going to stay there and try to turn left into this wall of cars, when it could just simply reroute, turn right, make another right, and get back home that way, which is the way that a normal human would have handled the situation. So, like, a normal person trying FSD, they hear all this hype about it, then that's their experience. They'd be like, well, no, this is annoying, I'm taking over. So I think there's just too many of those issues right now. I would say I'm not super concerned about them. I think the pace of improvement, I remember similar types of issues with V13 when it launched. And then as we got into later dot releases, I just loved it and was using it pretty much all the time. With a few exceptions where I knew, like, certain parts of my neighborhood, it would just handle it worse than I would. So I would just take over for comfort. But I think when it gets to the point where regular people see the value of it, and it's actually doing what they would want, without the annoying jerk or navigation issues, that's when I think Tesla has its FSD ChatGPT type of moment. But I don't think we can really get there until it solves a problem for people.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of interesting when you think about the history of FSD and where we've come with the various different versions. And I think I started testing it back in 9 or 10 or something like that. So it's been a while. And the things that we were worried about early on was, would it stay in the lane? Would it even stop at the stop sign? Those kinds of things. Those were our concern areas. And whether or not it stayed on this turn to go left or not, the fact that it was even there, we were impressed.
Yeah.
And it's really matured a lot to the point now we are talking about many of the concern areas are preferences. And I think that is a much harder thing to solve, because you may think that I want to be in the left lane and I want to be in the left lane for a while because it's a turn coming up in 2 miles. I might think, no, I'm going to stay in the right lane until I get to the last minute. That's fine with me. Either one is not wrong if it makes it to the turn and turns. It's just, it's your preference versus my preference. And I think that is really becoming more and more of the big issue. And hopefully if they get like the navigation thing a little bit better solved, whether it's the database or maybe it's a different way for us to interact with the car. Like if you could talk to it and say, hey, just don't worry about it. Let's go right and we'll be fine. And the car does that. That's more natural. It's kind of like you and me in a car. And I just say, hey, Matt, just go ahead and turn right. I don't care. If they can get to those kinds of points, then it will really help not only solve the navigation problems, but it will also really help with those preference things. And then if it can remember that all the time, like, one of my sisters has FSD and it drives her crazy because there's a particular route that she wants to take to go home. And it doesn't take that route. And even if it's 3 minutes faster to go the route FSD wants, she wants to go the other route. And it would be really nice if she could tell the car and it would remember that, okay, we're always going to take this route unless there's something dramatic that I can't take that route. So if they can get it to that point, I think it would be really, really great. And then of course, I think what everybody wants, the big chat GPT moment, like you said, I think is when they say, yeah, you can sleep.
Yeah. So do you think they get there with like more Grok integration down the road, where it's actually able to, input a conversation like that and somehow interface with the self-driving computer and the software and make those types of preference decisions?
I think the answer to that is, first, yes, if they could integrate it into the systems of the vehicle so that it can not only just talk to you or give you answers, but it can actually take action. I think that would be really important. This does touch on another one of those hot topic items within the Tesla community, and that has more to do with what's on the vote right now, is whether or not Tesla should take a stake in XAI and bring them together or not, or should Tesla not do that and just build on their own AI in-house. And I think it's pretty clear that XAI and Tesla are going to have to work together, and I think it would be good. And if they did that, then they could bring Grok in, and Grok would probably play a role in other things too, like Optimus and so forth. I think it's only natural, and I think it's actually necessary. I think they have to, because you can imagine that situation where now the car is truly your chauffeur. You get into it, you talk to it, and it responds to what you want to do. It remembers your preferences. And if you on a whim say, yeah, instead of going to the post office, let's go to, the grocery store instead. And it just does that, just like we just said it. I think that would be, momentous. Another thing, since I do a lot of robotaxi rides, and by the way, interestingly enough, the robotaxi software seems to still be, even with 14.1.4, better. So there is still a difference between the two of some sort, and it just handles situations better than even 14.1.4. But with my robotaxi rides, I've done a lot of them with international people that have come in from all different countries that wanted to try robotaxi. And if you had a Grok that could talk to them in their own language and maybe help them out, point out things as they're driving around, and just make that seamless connection, I think that would be huge. So I think there's really big opportunity for Grok, or something like a Grok integrated into the vehicle that can actually take actions based on what you say.
Yeah. That's it's really interesting. Lot to digest there. Where do you think we land on this shareholder vote? Curious about the investment in XAI, but I think the real topic du jour that everyone is either stressing about or excited about, depending on their disposition, is Elon's pay package.
Yeah.
So I was looking at Polymarket. I think it was like a 94% probability of passing. So it seems very likely. But what are your expectations heading into this shareholder vote?
Well, I think a couple of things that are telling is one, even you do see Tesla big employees of Tesla posting about vote and support for Elon and everything. You've seen stuff from Tesla talking about that as well. So they're obviously putting forth an effort to try to ensure that the vote is successful, which means, in my opinion, successful is proving it and giving him the shot to try to attain these really audacious goals, which I find it funny that some of the people that criticize it seem to think it's super simple. So why are there not any other $8 trillion companies? I mean,
Yeah.
really? So I think that that's an indicator. Another indicator is that recently Elon's been out kind of on the talk service, whatever, with Joe Rogan and on the All In podcast and all that, and talking about what his plans are and stuff. So I don't think he would be doing that if he thought that it was going to fail. And just today, if those that don't know her, you should. Alexandra Tesla Booma Mama, with some of her work that she's been doing from the retail side, it's pretty impressive. And I guess Charles Schwab has now decided, instead of going with what ISS said as far as voting against it, they are voting for it.
Oh, I hadn't heard that they changed.
Yes.
Oh,
There's a
okay.
bunch of letters they're sending out today to their shareholders saying,
Wow.
just let you know we are voting for it.
Yeah, we actually use Schwab and Fidelity at Rebellionaire for our clients, and so we were starting to get some questions about, all right, let's move our accounts. We don't like Schwab now, so that's
Apparently
great that
they
she
got
was
the
able to.
message.
Yeah, they got that pretty quick.
Yeah, but I think that
that's
goes
great.
to the strength of the retail investors. Is
100%.
everybody sees what Tesla's trying to do, the risks that they're taking, and the future that they want to go at, and all of us want to see that. And I think we want to reward Tesla with at least the shot of trying to get us there versus everyone else just trying to come up with reasons why we can't get there.
Yeah. And I think the thing you said about, people saying like, oh, it's just so easy. Like you shouldn't pay the guy, $1 trillion or whatever,
Right.
and I'm just like, invariably, it's like the bears that are making this argument. And I'm like, listen, if your thesis is right, he gets nothing. Like
Right.
you should be happy. You should vote for this so that you can gleefully watch as
You can
he
gloat
wastes.
in the future when he couldn't make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. So I just like, I find it so crazy when, like these two contradictory worldviews are being held at the same time. So yeah, it seems pretty clear to me that that's going to pass. Obviously we don't know, and as I think it was Alexandra was saying previously, we're not going to get the majority of the votes because the institutions will vote the day before, possibly even the day of. So
Which is tomorrow, by the way. So it's
yeah.
very soon.
So we're getting there for sure. Time is winding down on that, but we'll have some answers. I'm curious, any other expectations you have for the shareholder meeting? Do you think there's going to be some big unveil? I've heard some people suggesting that maybe we'll get like the Roadster demo there, which Elon was talking about on Joe Rogan. Yeah. I'm personally a little skeptical of that, but what expectations do you have?
Well, shareholders meetings are not typically a product reveal meeting. So I don't know if we're going to really see much. Maybe there will be some information that's given out, or maybe there'll be a smaller demonstration, even though that they said that they're going to unveil Optimus version 3 first quarter of next year or whatever. Maybe they'll introduce something, or I don't know, but I don't think it'll be a full on thing. We might see maybe some Cybercabs there, and they'll talk a little bit about, this is the latest version or something like that. I do know for a fact that outside the factory, they've been putting up a bunch of displays where it's the mobile superchargers, the solar roof displays. They've got a bunch of tents. They're preparing the West Main entrance to have vehicles out there again. So there is a potential for something like that. But I think the bulk of the meeting is going to be focused on whether or not Elon gets the CEO compensation package. And then if it's approved, then I think that's where most of the conversation is going to be.
I'm looking forward to that, because then we'll have happy Elon, and happy Elon at an event like this is always exciting. He tends to have some kind of off the cuff remarks that can be a lot of times more valuable than any prepared remarks that he has. So
yeah.
I think just like his tone almost matters more than any of the actual content that they'll have at an event like this.
Yeah, I know that they usually, the people that are lucky enough to go, and unfortunately, I am not one of them this year, but when you do get a chance to go, they give you a little bit of a tour. It's kind of an abbreviated one through the production site, and it's usually the Model Y or maybe the Cybertruck line. I know people are going to want to see the Cybercab line, but that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I would suspect not. I wanted to ask you a question on the Cybercab line. I think it was originally proposed that this would be with the unboxed process, and then there's been questions of, are we doing partial unbox? Is that for Cybercab? Is that for other vehicles? Do you have any information based on all the flyovers that you've been doing on what type of equipment they have, and any insights you could share on? Is this some unique process, or more of the same?
I guess I would say that quite a bit of the equipment that has been brought in and taken to the factory and put in for installation is different than what we've seen before. I do know that they are super excited about what they're doing. I know that at some point they want to go to do a public event so they can show people. And the reason why they want to do that is because it's going to be unlike anything you've ever seen before. It won't be like a long line of production with people coming in and installing stuff or whatever. If you've been fortunate enough to see the Cybertruck line, you can see that it's quite robotic, and what the new one's going to be makes that look old school.
That's exciting. So,
and by the way, it's not just one section of the factory, by the way. There's parts and pieces that support it. So you have the castings that are being made and setting up the casting machines and doing all the testing, and that's one part of the factory. You have where they've been building out a lot of the production capability for the structural packs that would be necessary for them. So that's being built out too. They have a different well, it's been a while, but they've installed a different e-coating and painting system. And people go, well, the Cybercab doesn't get painted. Well, parts of it do underneath it, kind of almost like a powder coating kind of thing.
But it's not a traditional paint shop that they'll have.
No, right? It's not gonna be like, the body going through and getting sprayers.
Yeah.
But there are under parts of it that do require some sort of undercoating or painting. In fact, when you see the doors open, you see the black trim. Mm-hmm. That's what that is. So there's going to be parts like that. I know that they've been doing a lot of work at the plastics manufacturing part of the factory, getting ready for making the parts, but also with that resin, I don't know what you call it, pigment impregnated parts of the resin so that it has that color, so that there is no painting, and it should be pretty resistant to scratching or damage. But if it is damaged, it's just remove and replace. It's pretty quick. So it should make not only manufacturing faster, but it should make repairs faster and cheaper as well. And then just a bunch of other parts of the factory are being prepared to support this. So it's not just one little area. I mean, it's throughout the entire factory. With the amount of extra floor space that they've added through the use of mezzanines and also bringing in a lot of steel and everything, they've added almost 1 million square feet more to the factory.
Wow, that is crazy. Yeah. I think the body panels and how durable they're meant to be. I mean, and all the benefits that you get from that, like you were just describing. It seems like one of those things that seems so obvious once you start thinking about it. Okay, we'll eliminate the need for a paint shop. We'll have more scratch resistant doors. They'll be more durable for heavily rented product, which maybe won't be cared for as well as a personally owned vehicle. Like all these benefits just start to really make a lot of sense, and that's just a hats off to the Tesla engineering team for being able to make all these types of decisions that in unison just make so much sense.
Right. Well, there's another concept that they have with the whole unboxing and what's going on to it. It's something called design for manufacturability, And that's where the unboxing comes up, is that they've designed it to be highly automated from the beginning. So instead of having long wire harnesses that you have to feed through somewhere or reach in to put seats and all that, it's being designed in a way that robotic assembly fits it perfectly. And with that, that's one of the reasons why it's going to be so unlike anything else that you see. You just imagine like maybe 4 or 5 large chunks of the car being built in certain areas, and then they magically just come together, and voila, you have a car, and all of it can be done automated, which is pretty cool. Not specifically on Cybercabs, but when they did the line upgrades to prepare for the new Model Y, and I was fortunate enough to be able to see the production lines. One of the things that they did is that they looked at that particular line and tried to figure out where they could more automate things. And one of the more obvious places had to do in the body in white section, and where they were putting doors and hatches on. Is the original Model Y was heavily human centric, and you had a lot of people that were picking the doors up, putting whatever. With their upgrades, they've automated it all, or almost all of it. So the difference between what we would have seen, say, in 2022 when they first started making it versus now is striking. How much less people are there.
Do you think we'll have any Optimus robots on the line?
You mean the Cybercab line?
Yeah.
Probably.
I'm just wondering if like something like that could be done almost as a gimmick, but the real test would be, is it actually productive and economically useful to have some part of that process done by Optimus? And so I'd just be curious, once we start learning more, to know if there are certain jobs, certain tasks within that process that lend themselves to being done by Optimus.
I would say that, just think of it this way, is that you don't want to build the line with the assumption that you're going to have Optimus, and then for whatever reason Optimus is delayed or doesn't function the way you want it. So I think it's designed more with the idea of a lot of automation, and then if there are areas where the Optimus would be best suited, they could be inserted at some point.
Yeah. And presumably, there's going to be some human roles here in the assembly process, and Optimus, if it is as good as it should be, then it should be able to step into some of those roles as well. So,
yeah. Well, one thing that I think just generally that we have to keep in mind, whether it's FSD, whether it's Cybercab, whether it's Robotaxi, whether we're doing this AI thing, or whether Optimus is, we're very early in all of these things. And it's not just Tesla, it's across the industry. And we are seeing, like, say with Optimus Robot, we're seeing a variety of different companies attempting different ways of approaching the humanoid robot. And I think that's great, because we get a chance to experiment on a variety of different form factors and approaches. And over time, we'll figure out what really works and what doesn't. With Tesla, all of us that are shareholders and supporters of the company, we believe that they have the right solution. We think that they are on the right path, and we think that they're fielding the right products that will be successful. But we need it to be executed. We need to see it in the marketplace, and we need to find out what actually works. And along the way, we're going to find out that some things need to be adjusted. And I think we need to keep that in mind with all of these subjects, because we're acting like they're all a done deal. And there's still a little bit of work to be done to get us there.
Yeah, for sure. The execution, I mean, it seems like we're so close, we can taste it, but there's still a lot of execution that needs to happen from the engineering teams, from the AI team, and a lot going on right now.
That's what I would say with V14. You were asking about early testers and the information. That's why I think it's critical to give honest feedback, because we may all really, really, really want to be in that future, and we think this is it, but we're doing Tesla a disservice if we say everything's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the things I really value about your reporting and your commentary just in general is it seems to be in the service of finding truth. And we love Tesla, we love the company, but that doesn't mean that they're perfect and have never made any mistakes. So we want to call them out, not to criticize unnecessarily, but just to help the company get even better. So
I've had a chance to talk to a bunch of the people that work at Tesla, and one of the things that I tell them is that one area where there's a huge opportunity that they are not exploring, that they really need to, is trying to educate not only their customers that have purchased vehicles, because there's a lot of new owners of Teslas that are not tech natives, and they
Oh
are
yeah.
trying to figure out how that works. And then there's the larger audience that may be tech curious, but they don't know enough and they're afraid of it. And there's this opportunity that they could, and I'm not saying advertising, I'm saying educate and come up with ways of helping people understand how Tesla and their technology can fit into their lives and make their lives better. And I think there's a huge place for that.
I completely agree. I mean, it's not even those populations. I mean, I've spoken to, older people who want FSD to, help them to drive safely as their, vision starts to deteriorate over time and reaction time slip, and others that just have, massive misperceptions about Teslas, like being massive fire risk and things like that. So, I think a huge amount of education could be done, and I think it will happen over time, but Tesla doesn't seem to be wanting to take a lead role in leading that education charge. So maybe that's one area where I don't know. It's hard with this Tesla community, because I feel like we're all talking to each other and we're not getting out into the world very, very much.
That's why I try to bring along people who have never experienced it, and self-driving or whatever, and get their immediate reactions, because it's telling you all you need to know. It's everything from how do I turn it on and how do I turn it off to what's it doing?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm curious, what are you most excited about at Giga Texas right now? I mean, you've seen lots of change over many years now. What's got you the most excited at the moment?
I just think that it's kind of like, it's going to sound like a weird way to answering it, but it's like an iPhone. If you think about that, is an iPhone wasn't just one piece of technology or one thing that came together. There was a whole bunch of things that all matured about the same time, and then they all came together to make this new product called an iPhone. And it changed how we do things. I mean, I make videos with my iPhone out at Starbase and post it online with my Starlink, and voila, I have video. I mean, who would have thought that would have happened with all these different technologies of like cameras and keyboards and screens and all that stuff? To me, that's what's really cool about Giga Texas and Tesla. What's going on is there's a lot of these technologies that are all maturing about the same time, and they're being put together in ways that are material to us, and we can see that. And just being able to see this happen from something that was just dirt and watching dirt being moved to now this factory that's building these products, and seeing and getting a chance to talk to some of the people that are working on all these things. To me, that's the most encouraging and exciting thing about the future, is that we've only seen up to now what they've done with, what they've done up to now, but there's so much on the immediate horizon that's going to be just amazing. And I think it has the chance of changing the way we think about transportation, the way we think about personal support with like a robot or whatever. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities that are going to be created that we don't even realize now, that once those are fielded and they're out in the world, people are going to come up with all these crazy ways of using it. And to me, that's really why I do what I do.
Well, thank you for all that you do. I really appreciate it. I love getting all the updates from you. If you don't already, for some strange reason, go follow Joe on X, subscribe to his YouTube channel. So many great insights there. Check him out on Patreon too. Joe, thank you so much for stepping in today. I love the conversation, and really appreciate you being here.
Well, thanks for having me, and good luck to Tesla coming up on Thursday. Hopefully it all goes well.
Should be exciting either way.
Yep.